When you look up at the night sky, you are not just seeing stars. You are looking into time itself. Every point of light above you has traveled through darkness for years, sometimes thousands of years, just to reach your eyes in this very moment. And yet, the universe does not feel rushed. It does not hurry. It moves in silence, in balance, in patience. Even the light from our own sun takes time to arrive here. What you see is not the sun as it is right now, but the sun as it was more than 8 minutes ago. That means even our closest star is already part of the past by the time we notice it. And if we move further into space, the distances become almost impossible to imagine. The moon, our nearest neighbor, is slowly drifting away from Earth every single year. It is a quiet separation, so slow that life feels unchanged, but over millions of years, even the sky above us will look different. Beyond that, there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth combined. Each one could be a sun, each one possibly holding worlds we may never see. Yet when we look at the night sky, we often see only a few. The rest remain hidden, not because they are not there, but because distance is too large for human eyes to fully understand. Space itself is completely silent. There is no air, no medium for sound to travel. So even the most powerful explosions in the universe happen without a sound. A supernova can shine brighter than an entire galaxy, but if you were nearby, you would hear nothing at all. This silence is not empty. It is full of presence. Full of energy that we cannot hear, but can only imagine. Time behaves differently in space as well. If something could travel close to the speed of light, time for it would slow down compared to everything else. A journey that feels like moments for one traveler could be years for another. And then there are planets like Jupiter, so massive that more than 1,000 Earths could fit inside it. Yet even this giant is made mostly of gas, slowly spinning in darkness, holding its place through gravity alone. Far beyond planets and stars, there are objects like black holes. These are not empty spaces, but regions where gravity becomes so strong that even light cannot escape. Anything that comes too close is pulled inward, where the normal rules of time and space begin to break down. Inside those regions, time does not behave the way we understand it. It stretches, slows, and becomes something entirely unfamiliar. And yet, despite all of this, the universe continues its expansion. Galaxies move away from each other. Space itself is stretching, silently, endlessly, without sound or pause. It is as if the universe is breathing, but in a way that is far too slow for any human lifetime to notice. Everything we see, every star, every planet, every galaxy, is part of a system so large that the human mind can only observe a tiny fraction of it. And still, in the middle of all this vastness, we exist. On a small planet, orbiting a medium star, inside one galaxy among billions. There is no rush in the universe. No urgency. No pressure. Only motion, only time, only silence. And as you continue to listen, you can allow your thoughts to slow down as well, just like everything else in the universe that moves without force, only flow. The night is not asking you to understand everything. It is only asking you to rest within it. Galaxies are not standing still. They are moving away from each other, slowly expanding into a space that has no visible edge. It is not an explosion moving outward from a center, but space itself stretching everywhere at once. This means that no matter where you stand in the universe, it always feels like everything else is drifting away from you. As if you are sitting in a quiet boat, and the water itself is expanding in every direction. And yet, even in this endless expansion, gravity continues its silent work. It pulls stars together into galaxies, holds planets in orbit, and keeps systems stable across millions of years. Everything is balanced between expansion and attraction, movement and stillness. Inside galaxies, stars are born in vast clouds of gas and dust. These clouds are so large that light takes years just to travel across them. Within them, pressure slowly builds, until new stars ignite, lighting up regions of space that were once completely dark. Some of these stars live short, intense lives. Others burn slowly and steadily for billions of years. Our own sun is somewhere in between, quietly shining without urgency, giving life to everything around it. But even stars have an end. When massive stars reach the final stage of their life, they collapse inward and then explode outward in a supernova. In a single moment, they can shine brighter than an entire galaxy. Elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron are scattered into space, becoming the building blocks for new stars, new planets, and eventually, life itself. This means that everything around us, even the atoms in our bodies, once came from ancient stars that no longer exist. You are not separate from the universe. You are part of its long history. Far away in space, there are regions so cold and dark that almost nothing happens for billions of years. Dust drifts slowly. Particles move without sound. Time continues, but nothing seems to change. In these quiet regions, the universe feels almost paused, as if it is waiting. And then there are places of extreme energy. Near black holes, space becomes heavily distorted. Light bends. Time slows down. The rules that feel normal here on Earth no longer apply in the same way. If you could observe a falling object near a black hole, it would appear to slow down as it gets closer, almost freezing in time from far away. But for the object itself, everything would continue in a strange and irreversible flow. These contrasts are everywhere in the universe. Extreme cold and extreme heat. Complete silence and violent explosions. Infinite expansion and strong gravitational pull. And somehow, all of it exists together in balance. Even the concept of distance becomes difficult to fully understand. The nearest star system to us is so far away that even traveling at the speed of light would take years to reach it. And most of the universe lies far beyond even that. Yet when we look up at the night sky, we see only a small window of this vast reality. A small frame of something unimaginably larger. The human mind was never meant to fully contain this scale. It can only observe, wonder, and slowly accept the vastness. And as you continue to listen, you may notice something subtle happening. Thoughts begin to slow down. The need to understand everything begins to fade. Because the universe itself does not rush. It does not force answers. It simply continues. Stars will continue to shine long after we are gone. Galaxies will continue to drift apart. Time will continue to move forward in silence. And in this quiet understanding, there is a kind of peace. A reminder that everything has its own pace. Even thinking. Even breathing. Even resting. As we continue deeper into the silence of the universe, even the idea of distance begins to feel less important. Everything is far, and yet everything is connected through time, light, and gravity. Light itself is the fastest thing in existence. Nothing can move faster than it. And yet even light takes time to travel across space. This simple truth means that everything you see in the night sky is already a memory. The stars are not what they appear to be right now, they are what they were long ago. Some of them may no longer even exist, but their light is still arriving here, gently, slowly, like echoes from the past that never fully disappear. And as we think about this, it becomes clear that time is not the same everywhere. On Earth, we experience time as steady and constant. One moment follows another in a straight line. But in the wider universe, time can stretch and bend depending on gravity and speed. Near massive objects like black holes, time moves differently. It can slow down so much that what feels like minutes for one observer could be years for another somewhere else. This means that time is not absolute. It is flexible. It changes depending on where you are. Even now, as you are listening, you are moving through time at a constant pace, but the universe around you is not bound to the same rhythm everywhere. And still, despite this complexity, everything continues in silence. There is no sound in space. No wind. No echo. Just motion without noise. Light traveling through darkness. Planets rotating without sound. Galaxies drifting without any audible trace. If space had a voice, it would not be loud. It would be almost nothing, a quiet presence rather than a sound. And perhaps that is what makes the universe feel so calm when we think about it deeply. It does not demand attention. It simply exists. In the distant parts of space, there are regions where matter is so spread out that atoms are separated by vast distances. In those places, nothing interacts for millions of years. It is a kind of stillness that is difficult to imagine. And yet, even there, the laws of physics continue to operate. Nothing is truly stopped. Everything is simply moving on a scale too slow for human perception. Closer to stars, everything becomes active again. Energy flows. Particles collide. Light is born. Matter changes form. And in these cycles of creation and decay, the universe builds itself continuously. Stars die, and from their remains, new stars are born. Planets form from leftover dust. Systems evolve over billions of years without pause. There is no final state. No ending point that everything is moving toward. Only transformation. Even our own existence is part of this long process. The atoms inside every living being were once part of ancient cosmic events. Explosions of stars that happened long before Earth existed. In a way, everything you are made of has traveled across time, across space, through countless transformations. And now, for a brief moment in the scale of the universe, it has come together here. On a small planet. Orbiting a quiet star. Inside a galaxy that is slowly moving through the expanding universe. And as you think about this, there is no need to rush the thought. You can simply let it exist, and pass, like everything else in the universe does. Nothing stays the same forever. Not stars. Not galaxies. Not even time as we understand it. Everything flows. Everything changes. And everything continues, in silence. As the thoughts continue to slow down, even curiosity begins to soften. There is nothing urgent to solve, nothing that needs to be held tightly. The universe does not hurry, and in its reflection, everything becomes a little lighter, a little quieter. Every moment that passes is part of a larger movement that stretches far beyond what the mind can measure. Planets continue to orbit their stars with perfect balance. Not because they are trying to, but because gravity gently guides them into endless motion. This motion has been ongoing for billions of years, long before human life ever existed, and it will continue long after. Even stars, which seem eternal to the eye, are temporary in the scale of cosmic time. They are born from clouds of dust and gas, shine for millions or billions of years, and eventually return their material back into space. Nothing is wasted in this process. Everything becomes something else. Even endings are part of continuation. Far beyond our galaxy, space expands quietly. Not like something pushing outward, but like the fabric of existence itself stretching without effort. This expansion is so slow on human timescales that it cannot be felt. Only measured. Only observed. And yet it continues, without pause, without sound. If you imagine the universe as a vast ocean, then galaxies are like drifting lights carried gently on its surface. Moving apart not because of force, but because the space between them is growing. And still, within each galaxy, gravity holds everything together. Stars stay bound. Systems remain stable. Order exists inside expansion. This balance between structure and space is one of the quietest truths of existence. Everything is held together just enough, and released just enough. Even time, as it passes, does not feel like something breaking or ending. It feels more like a wave, moving forward without resistance. Moments do not disappear. They simply move further away from the present. The past is not gone. It is just distant. The future is not separate. It is simply not here yet. And the present is only a very small space between the two. In the deeper regions of space, where light takes millions or even billions of years to travel, the concept of now becomes less meaningful. Everything exists in layers of time, overlapping in ways that are difficult to fully imagine. And yet, despite this vast complexity, there is a simple calmness in the idea that everything is unfolding naturally. No force is rushing it. No pressure is pushing it. It is simply happening. Even in places where stars no longer shine, where only remnants remain, there is still structure. Still movement. Still existence. The universe does not stop in silence, it continues in it. And as you remain with these thoughts, you may notice something subtle. The mind does not need to follow every detail anymore. It can simply rest inside the flow of ideas, without holding on to them. Like watching distant lights in the sky, appearing, and slowly fading, without needing to chase them. Everything continues. Everything softens. Everything remains, just as it is. As everything continues to unfold in silence, even the sense of direction begins to soften. There is nowhere to go in this moment, because nothing is asking to be reached. The universe does not move toward a destination. It simply moves. And in that simple movement, everything finds its place without effort. Stars do not choose their paths. Planets do not decide their orbits. Galaxies do not negotiate their expansion. Everything follows a rhythm that has existed long before awareness itself. A rhythm that does not demand attention, only existence. And as you stay with this quiet flow of thought, it becomes easier to notice how everything is already in motion, even when it appears still. The earth is rotating gently, carrying oceans, mountains, cities, and quiet nights across its surface without pause. At the same time, it is orbiting the sun in a long, steady path that takes an entire year to complete. And the sun itself is moving through the galaxy, carrying its entire system along a slow journey that spans millions of years. Nothing is truly stationary. Even stillness is movement on a scale that is simply too slow to notice. In distant parts of the universe, light continues to travel through vast emptiness, crossing regions where nothing else has changed for billions of years. That light carries information from a time long gone, yet it still arrives, gently, into the present. And in this way, the universe keeps sharing its history without words. Only through light. Only through time. There are places where matter is so spread out that atoms are separated by enormous distances. In those regions, interactions are rare, and change happens so slowly that entire eras pass without visible difference. And still, even there, the rules remain intact. Physics does not pause. It continues quietly, consistently, everywhere. In contrast, there are regions of intense activity where energy is constantly transforming. Near stars, matter is heated, compressed, and reshaped into new forms. Out of this constant transformation, structure emerges. Out of chaos, patterns appear. And out of endings, beginnings return. This cycle has no known start and no defined end. It simply continues. And perhaps that is what makes the universe feel so vast yet so peaceful when observed without urgency. There is no need to complete it. No need to understand it fully. Only to witness it as it is. Even the idea of time becoming softer now, less like something pushing forward, and more like something gently unfolding. Moments do not rush past each other. They simply move, one after another, without resistance. And in this slow unfolding, everything finds a quiet balance. Not perfect. Not final. Just continuous. Just present. And as these thoughts drift further into stillness, there is nothing left to hold tightly. Only a calm awareness that everything is still happening, in its own way, at its own pace, in complete silence. As the quietness deepens, even thoughts begin to lose their weight. They are still there, but they no longer need to be followed. They can simply pass, like distant light moving across endless space. Everything in the universe has its own pace. Nothing is forced to match anything else. And in that understanding, there is a natural easing, a soft release from the need to hold on to every idea. The universe does not demand focus. It simply exists in layers of motion and stillness at the same time. Far away, galaxies continue their slow separation, drifting further apart with each passing moment. Not in a sudden way, but in a way so gradual that no single moment feels different from the last. Change, in the universe, is often so gentle that it becomes invisible while it is happening. Only over immense spans of time does it become noticeable. And yet, it is always happening. Stars continue to burn quietly, converting matter into light without interruption. Some shine brightly for a short time in cosmic terms, while others burn steadily for billions of years, almost unchanged in appearance. But even the longest-lasting stars are temporary. Everything in the universe carries a beginning, and a transformation. Nothing remains fixed forever. And still, nothing is truly lost. It simply changes form. Energy becomes light. Light becomes heat. Matter becomes dust. Dust becomes new stars. A continuous cycle without interruption. And as this cycle continues, space itself stretches in silence. Not like fabric being pulled from a single direction, but like everything expanding together, evenly, without noise or resistance. This expansion has no edge that can be reached. No boundary that can be touched. Only more space appearing where space already exists. And through all of this, time continues to move forward in its quiet way. Not as something separate, but as something woven into everything else. Moments arise, exist briefly, and then become part of what came before. And what came before does not disappear. It simply moves further away. There is a softness in this idea. A sense that nothing is truly gone, it is just no longer close. And even now, as these thoughts slow further, there is no need to grasp them tightly. They can remain loose, light, and easy to let go. Like watching the night sky without searching for anything specific. Just observing. Just allowing. Just being present with the quiet vastness. Everything continues without interruption. And everything continues without urgency. And in that continuation, there is only calm. Only space. Only silence. As everything becomes quieter, even the need to follow thoughts begins to fade. There is no longer anything to analyze, nothing to hold, nothing to complete. Only a gentle awareness that everything is still unfolding on its own. The universe has never needed guidance. It has never waited for permission. It simply continues, in perfect, silent motion. Far beyond imagination, space keeps expanding. Not towards something, not away from something, but simply expanding as part of what it already is. There is no center that can be found. No edge that can be reached. Only endless continuation. And in that endlessness, everything that exists finds its place naturally. Stars are born without instruction. Galaxies form without effort. Time moves forward without interruption. And even endings are not true endings, only transitions into something else. Nothing in the universe is truly separate. Everything is part of the same unfolding reality, just appearing in different forms, at different distances, at different moments in time. And as you listen now, this idea can become softer, easier, lighter. There is no need to understand it fully. Understanding is not required for stillness. The universe does not ask to be understood. It only asks to be observed, gently, without urgency. Even silence itself is not empty. It is full of presence that does not need words. Full of space that does not need explanation. And now, as this journey through the universe slowly comes to rest, everything begins to feel more distant, and yet more calm. Thoughts do not need to continue. They can slow down, one by one, until they are no longer forming anything new. Just fading, gently, like light returning to darkness. And in that fading, there is comfort. A natural quietness. A feeling of being held by something vast, something steady, something endless. The universe continues. But there is nothing you need to continue with it. Only rest. Only stillness. Only silence, expanding softly in every direction. And now, nothing more is required. Just this moment, becoming quieter, and quieter. Until even silence feels like sleep. Everything continues without interruption. And everything continues without urgency. And in that continuation, there is only calm. Only space. Only silence. As everything becomes quieter, even the need to follow thoughts begins to fade. There is no longer anything to analyze, nothing to hold, nothing to complete. Only a gentle awareness that everything is still unfolding on its own. The universe has never needed guidance. It has never waited for permission. It simply continues, in perfect, silent motion. Far beyond imagination, space keeps expanding. Not towards something, not away from something, but simply expanding as part of what it already is. There is no center that can be found. No edge that can be reached. Only endless continuation. And in that endlessness, everything that exists finds its place naturally. Stars are born without instruction. Galaxies form without effort. Time moves forward without interruption. And even endings are not true endings, only transitions into something else. Nothing in the universe is truly separate. Everything is part of the same unfolding reality, just appearing in different forms, at different distances, at different moments in time. And as you listen now, this idea can become softer, easier, lighter. There is no need to understand it fully. Understanding is not required for stillness. The universe does not ask to be understood. It only asks to be observed, gently, without urgency. Even silence itself is not empty. It is full of presence that does not need words. Full of space that does not need explanation. And now, as this journey through the universe slowly comes to rest, everything begins to feel more distant, and yet more calm. Thoughts do not need to continue. They can slow down, one by one, until they are no longer forming anything new. Just fading, gently, like light returning to darkness. And in that fading, there is comfort. A natural quietness. A feeling of being held by something vast, something steady, something endless. The universe continues. But there is nothing you need to continue with it. Only rest. Only stillness. Only silence, expanding softly in every direction. And now, nothing more is required. Just this moment, becoming quieter, and quieter. Until even silence feels like sleep. As the silence continues to expand gently, even the idea of distance starts to feel softer. Not because the universe has changed, but because perception begins to slow down. Everything that exists is already in motion, yet from this quiet perspective, it feels still. This is one of the most subtle truths of existence, that motion and stillness can exist at the same time. Planets continue their paths without interruption, tracing invisible lines around their stars with perfect consistency. These paths are not drawn with effort. They are maintained by balance, a balance between motion and gravity that has lasted for billions of years. And in this balance, nothing is ever lost. It only changes position, changes form, changes state. Even time, which feels so constant in daily life, is not separate from this system. It bends slightly in places where gravity is strong, and stretches where distance becomes vast. But for everything inside it, it still feels like a continuous flow. A flow that never stops, only moves forward. Far away, entire star systems exist in regions where light takes thousands of years just to travel between them. In those places, events happen so slowly that change becomes almost invisible to any observer. And yet, change is always happening. Even in the quietest corners of space, transformation never truly stops. Gas clouds slowly shift. Particles gently drift. Energy redistributes itself across vast emptiness. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is gradual. And perhaps that is why the universe feels so peaceful when observed deeply. Because nothing is forced. Nothing is rushed. Everything unfolds in its own time. And as this thought continues, it becomes easier to let go of the idea that everything must be understood immediately. Some things are not meant to be solved. They are meant to be experienced slowly, like a long quiet night that does not require explanation. If you move even further in imagination, beyond galaxies and clusters, space begins to feel almost abstract. Not empty, but vast beyond measure. A kind of endless openness where even structure becomes rare. And still, even in this openness, the laws of the universe remain active. Nothing is outside of them. Everything participates in the same underlying system. Light continues to travel. Time continues to pass. Matter continues to interact in subtle ways that shape existence. And somewhere within this endless structure, new stars are still being born. In cold clouds of gas, pressure slowly builds over time. Not quickly, but over millions of years. Until eventually, a threshold is reached, and a new star ignites. A single moment of light emerging from long silence. And that light begins its own journey, lasting for billions of years, just as others have before it. This cycle has no visible beginning and no final end. It repeats endlessly across space. Creation, transformation, dissolution, and creation again. And through it all, nothing is wasted. Even what seems like an ending becomes the beginning of something else. As the flow continues, everything begins to feel even more distant, not in a way that is lost, but in a way that becomes softer in perception. The universe does not change its nature. Only the awareness of it becomes calmer. And in that calmness, even vastness feels lighter. Across unimaginable distances, galaxies continue their slow movement through space. Each one containing billions of stars, each star possibly surrounded by worlds that may never be seen. And yet, despite this unimaginable scale, everything remains connected through the same invisible rules. Gravity continues to hold matter together. Light continues to travel through darkness. Time continues to move forward without interruption. Nothing is separate from this unfolding. Even the emptiest regions of space are not truly empty. They contain faint particles, subtle energy, and traces of light that has been traveling for billions of years. Everything leaves an imprint. Nothing disappears completely. It only becomes less noticeable as it moves further away in time and space. And perhaps that is why the universe feels so endless. Not because it is chaotic, but because it is continuously unfolding without repeating in exactly the same way. Every moment is slightly different from the one before it. Every position in space is slightly shifted from where it was. And every expression of energy carries its own unique path. Yet all of it follows the same underlying harmony. A harmony that does not need to be seen to exist. It simply is. And as this thought continues, the idea of distance begins to feel less important again. Because everything that exists is part of the same structure, the same continuous field of motion and stillness. There is no separation in the way the universe operates. only variation in scale. Only difference in timing. Only change in form. And as you stay with this quiet understanding, there is nothing required from you in return. No action. No effort. Only observation, soft and unforced. Far beyond the regions where stars are visible, there are spaces where even light becomes extremely rare. In these regions, distances are so vast that even the strongest signals take unimaginable time to cross from one point to another. And yet, the universe continues to behave consistently in every direction. There is no central control. No boundary directing movement. Only laws that remain constant everywhere. In some regions, matter slowly gathers under gravity, forming structures that will one day become stars or entire galaxies. In other regions, matter spreads so thin that it barely interacts at all. But both conditions are part of the same universe. Both are expressions of the same system in different states. And over time, these states shift naturally. Nothing remains fixed forever. Even the largest structures will eventually change shape, break apart, or merge into something new. But this is not destruction. It is transition. A continuous process where everything becomes something else without ever truly stopping. And as this idea gently settles, there is a quiet simplicity in understanding that the universe does not need to be completed. It is already complete in its unfolding. Every moment is already part of it. Nothing is missing. Nothing is waiting. Everything is already happening. As everything continues in its quiet motion, even the sense of scale begins to soften. The mind no longer tries to measure the universe, it simply allows it to exist. And in that allowance, everything becomes easier to observe without effort. Across the vastness of space, structures continue to form and dissolve in a slow, continuous rhythm. Some regions gather matter tightly under gravity, creating stars, planets, and entire systems that remain stable for billions of years. Other regions drift apart, becoming thinner and more open, where interactions are rare and time feels stretched. Yet both are part of the same unfolding reality. Nothing exists outside this process. Everything participates in it, whether in density or emptiness, in light or darkness, in motion or near stillness. Even the most distant galaxies are not isolated. They are part of a larger cosmic web, connected through gravity and space itself. A web so vast that its full shape cannot be seen from any single point. And still, it holds everything together in its own quiet way. As time moves forward, stars complete their life cycles. Some end gently, fading over long periods. Others end in sudden bursts of energy that briefly outshine entire galaxies. But even these endings do not create emptiness. They release material back into space, material that will eventually become part of new structures. This cycle continues endlessly. Not repeating in the exact same way, but continuing in variation. Transformation without repetition. Movement without direction. Change without interruption. And as this understanding settles deeper, the idea of beginning and end starts to lose its sharpness. Because in the universe, nothing is truly separate from what comes before or after it. Everything is connected through continuous change. Headphone Sleepy Universe Documentary Script, Part 13. If we imagine stepping even further back, beyond galaxies and cosmic structures, the universe begins to feel like a single continuous field. Not divided into parts, but existing as one flowing system. In this view, stars, planets, dust, light, and even empty space are all expressions of the same underlying reality. Different states, different forms, but not separate in essence. Even time, which feels so structured in daily experience, becomes part of this flow. It does not sit outside the universe. It moves within it. And because of this, everything that happens is already part of the same unfolding sequence. Nothing is truly outside of time. Nothing exists beyond the system it is part of. And yet, within this unity, there is endless diversity. No two regions of space are exactly identical. No two moments are precisely the same. Everything carries subtle differences, even when it appears similar. And these differences are what create the richness of the universe. Without them, there would be no change. No motion. No evolution. And as this thought continues gently, it becomes clear that complexity and simplicity are not opposites. They exist together. The universe is incredibly complex in detail, yet simple in its fundamental behavior. It expands. It transforms. It continues. And that continuity does not require effort. It simply is. As the flow continues, even the idea of thinking forward begins to slow down. There is no urgency left in the moment, only a gentle continuation of awareness. The universe does not move in a straight line that can be easily measured from beginning to end. It moves in layers, where different scales of time and space overlap without conflict. On one scale, a star is born and dies over millions or billions of years. On another scale, a planet completes its orbit in a single year. And on another scale, a heartbeat completes in a moment that feels immediate. All of these are happening within the same universe, at the same time, yet each on its own rhythm. Nothing is out of sync. Everything is simply operating on different levels of timing. And in this realization, the need to compare or measure begins to fade. Because comparison requires urgency, and urgency does not exist in the universe itself. Only in perception. Across distant regions of space, light continues its journey. Some of it has been traveling since long before Earth existed. It moves through darkness without resistance, carrying information from ancient events that no longer exist in their original form. Yet the light remains. It does not forget its path. It simply continues until it reaches somewhere new. And when it does, it becomes part of a new moment, a new observation, a new presence. In this way, the universe constantly shares its history without speaking. Only through light. Only through time. And as this thought settles, there is a quiet understanding that nothing in the universe is truly isolated. Even the most distant object is connected through shared space, shared time, and shared laws. And as this understanding becomes softer, there is nothing left to hold on to. Only the quiet presence of everything continuing, without interruption, without resistance, without need for completion. As everything continues to drift forward in silence, even the sense of observation begins to feel softer. There is no pressure to focus, no need to hold on to every idea. Only a quiet awareness that things are still unfolding, even without attention. The universe does not depend on being observed to exist. It continues regardless of thought, regardless of understanding, regardless of perception. Stars shine whether or not they are seen. Galaxies move whether or not they are measured. Time passes whether or not it is noticed. And in this independence, there is a kind of calm certainty. Everything exists because it exists, not because it is being watched. Far away, deep within space, regions of near-empty void stretch across unimaginable distances. In these regions, matter is so sparse that particles may drift for millions of years without interacting with anything else. Yet even in these quiet regions, the universe is not inactive. Subtle forces still exist. Gravity still has influence. Light still travels when it is present. And the structure of space itself continues to expand gently, without interruption. There is no true pause anywhere. Only different speeds of change. And as this idea settles, the need to define everything precisely begins to fade. Because precision requires urgency, and urgency is not a natural state of the universe. It is simply a human interpretation of time. In reality, everything is already unfolding exactly as it is meant to unfold within the laws of physics. No moment is missing. No event is delayed. Everything is occurring in its own natural position within time and space. And as we move deeper into this understanding, even the distinction between far and near begins to feel less absolute. Because in a universe that is constantly expanding, distance itself is always changing. What is far today was closer in the past, and what is near today will shift again in the future. Nothing remains fixed in relationship. Everything is always adjusting, even if slowly. And in this continuous adjustment, the universe maintains its balance. Not through control, but through consistency. As this quiet expansion continues, there is a gentle shift in perception. The universe no longer feels like something being observed from outside. It feels more like something being experienced from within. Because there is no true outside to it. Everything that exists is already part of it. Even the act of thinking about the universe is happening inside the universe. This creates a subtle unity between observer and observed. Not separate, but connected through existence itself. And within this unity, everything continues its natural behavior. Atoms form structures. Structures form worlds. Worlds form systems. Systems form galaxies. And galaxies continue their silent movement across expanding space. At every scale, the same principles remain active. Interaction, transformation, and continuation. These principles do not change with distance or size. They remain consistent everywhere. And because of this consistency, the universe feels both stable and dynamic at the same time. Stable in its rules. Dynamic in its expression. And as this thought gently settles, there is nothing left that needs to be resolved. No question that requires an answer. Only the quiet presence of everything continuing as it already is. And as this understanding becomes softer, there is nothing left to hold on to. Only the quiet presence of everything continuing, without interruption, without resistance, without need for completion. As everything continues to drift forward in silence, even the sense of observation begins to feel softer. There is no pressure to focus, no need to hold on to every idea. Only a quiet awareness that things are still unfolding, even without attention. The universe does not depend on being observed to exist. It continues regardless of thought, regardless of understanding, regardless of perception. Stars shine whether or not they are seen. Galaxies move whether or not they are measured. Time passes whether or not it is noticed. And in this independence, there is a kind of calm certainty. Everything exists because it exists, not because it is being watched. Far away, deep within space, regions of near-empty void stretch across unimaginable distances. In these regions, matter is so sparse that particles may drift for millions of years without interacting with anything else. Yet even in these quiet regions, the universe is not inactive. Subtle forces still exist. Gravity still has influence. Light still travels when it is present. And the structure of space itself continues to expand gently, without interruption. There is no true pause anywhere. Only different speeds of change. And as this idea settles, the need to define everything precisely begins to fade. Because precision requires urgency, and urgency is not a natural state of the universe. It is simply a human interpretation of time. In reality, everything is already unfolding exactly as it is meant to unfold within the laws of physics. No moment is missing. No event is delayed. Everything is occurring in its own natural position within time and space. And as we move deeper into this understanding, even the distinction between far and near begins to feel less absolute. Because in a universe that is constantly expanding, distance itself is always changing. What is far today was closer in the past, and what is near today will shift again in the future. Nothing remains fixed in relationship. Everything is always adjusting, even if slowly. And in this continuous adjustment, the universe maintains its balance. Not through control, but through consistency. As this quiet expansion continues, there is a gentle shift in perception. The universe no longer feels like something being observed from outside. It feels more like something being experienced from within. Because there is no true outside to it. Everything that exists is already part of it. Even the act of thinking about the universe is happening inside the universe. This creates a subtle unity between observer and observed. Not separate, but connected through existence itself. And within this unity, everything continues its natural behavior. Atoms form structures. Structures form worlds. Worlds form systems. Systems form galaxies. And galaxies continue their silent movement across expanding space. At every scale, the same principles remain active. Interaction, transformation, and continuation. These principles do not change with distance or size. They remain consistent everywhere. And because of this consistency, the universe feels both stable and dynamic at the same time. Stable in its rules. Dynamic in its expression. And as this thought gently settles, there is nothing left that needs to be resolved. No question that requires an answer. Only the quiet presence of everything continuing as it already is. And now, as everything slows down even further, there is nothing left to chase, nothing left to figure out. Only a quiet understanding remains, that the universe has never been separate from this moment. It has always been here, unfolding gently, without beginning that can be found, and without an end that can truly be reached. The stars continue to exist in distant silence, but their distance no longer feels large. Galaxies continue their slow journey through expanding space, but even that motion feels soft, almost still. Because in this moment, everything is simply present. Not rushing forward, not pulling backward, just existing, as it is. Time continues to pass, but it no longer feels heavy. It feels light, like something drifting quietly through endless space. And thoughts, once vast and active, begin to slow, one by one, until they no longer need to form new paths. There is nothing more to solve. Nothing more to hold. Nothing more to understand right now. Even the universe does not need to be fully known to be experienced. It only needs to be observed, gently, without effort. And as that observation softens, everything begins to fade, not into nothingness, but into stillness. A stillness that is not empty, but full, of quiet presence, and endless calm. Stars are still shining somewhere far away. But you do not need to reach them. Galaxies are still moving somewhere beyond imagination. But you do not need to follow them. Because right now, everything you need is already here. This moment, this breath, this silence, this calm. And as even these words grow softer, they begin to disappear, slowly, like light fading into night. There is nothing more to add. Nothing more to continue. Only rest. Only stillness. Only silence, that gently holds everything together. And now, you can simply let go. And sleep.